What's up, my friends, and welcome into a little bit of an unexpected video today, but the Phillies have bolstered their starting rotation. Dave Dombrowski makes a trade right before the holiday season as the Phillies and the Marlins do business once again. The Phillies acquire left-handed starting pitcher Jesús Luzardo in exchange for a pair of their prospects, including their number 4 overall prospect, shortstop Starlyn Caba, and their 23rd overall prospect, the outfielder Emaarion. So let's talk about this. What does it mean for the Phillies rotation? Well, first and foremost, it means that the Phillies rotation is likely set for the 2025 season, assuming that they don't make a move that includes left-handed pitcher Ranger Suarez. But we know that it's going to be a left-handed heavy rotation, at least to begin the year, or at least what we believe to be the case with Ranger Suarez and Jesús Luzardo. Of course, Christopher Sanchez in the mix as well. And then at the top, it will be, of course, Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola. But it appears that the Phillies starting rotation, their top 5, is set. And I have to be honest with you, after the acquisition of Jesús Luzardo, the Phillies starting rotation is going to be up there with the best in baseball. It already was up there with some of the best in baseball. But when I think about the best rotations across Major League Baseball, the first team I go to is the Seattle Mariners. And now I think the second one that you're going to think about might be the Philadelphia Phillies after the acquisition of Jesús Luzardo. So let's break it down. Let's talk about Luzardo's numbers. Let's talk about his stuff. And we'll talk about the 2 prospects that the Miami Marlins are getting back in exchange for the services of the left-handed starter. So you're going to take a look at Luzardo's numbers last year, a 5 flat ERA, just 12 starts. The numbers were down across the board, and you're going to wonder what kind of pitcher Jesús Luzardo is. I think it's not fair to take a look at his numbers from last year. He was often injured. He missed a handful of starts in the beginning of spring into the early portion of the summer because of elbow tightness, and then was shut down in the middle portion of June with what is being called a lumbar stress reaction. He does say, however, that he's 100% ready to go. His throwing regimen is back, and he will be ready for the beginning of the season. So what type of pitcher is Jesús Luzardo? Well, I think it's actually pretty straightforward. Obviously, left-handed power arm. His fastball is his best pitch, a 4-seam fastball that routinely sits 95 to 97. He's willing to challenge you up in the zone. He's willing to attack lefties and righties with the fastball. It is definitively his best pitch, and I don't think there's any question that it's one of the better 4-seam fastballs across baseball. It's lively when it's on, it's sharp, and it's effective. Again, he's willing to challenge you up in the zone, and I don't think he has any problem throwing it in any particular count. It's his first pitch, it's his last pitch, it's his out pitch. But besides that, what does he do? He's kind of a 3-pitch pitcher with a 4th pitch sinker mixed in sparingly, but he's fastball, he's slider, he's changeup. Now, the slider, let's start there because it's a slider that he uses a lot, but it's a slider that when you look at it, when you look at the shape, when you look at the form of the slider, it's not a super awe-inspiring pitch, but it doesn't have a lot of spin. It's approximately 2,300 RPMs per pitch. The league average is 2,400. So it's a subpar spin rate slider. But he's willing to use it against righties and lefties. And when he uses the slider down in the zone, he generates a lot of swing and miss. So let's talk about the slider first against the right-handed hitters, and then we'll get into the reason that he uses it mostly is against the left-handed hitters. This goes back to 2023 because, again, I think you can kind of throw out 2024 a little bit. He was injured for a bulk of the season. The stuff didn't play. The velocity was down. The whip was up. The ERA was up. The strikeouts were down. But let's get into the slider first because I think the slider changeup pairing, we know what the fastball is. We know it's going to be a near elite fastball. Let's talk about the slider changeup pairing and how I think they could tweak him just a little bit to unlock even a little bit more. Caleb Cotham's going to have a lot of fun working with Jesús Luzardo. Let's talk about the slider first. Here are the numbers in 2023 for right-handed hitters, and then we'll get into the reason that he uses it against lefties so frequently. Righties hit 236 off the slider a season ago, a 45.8% whiff rate, and Luzardo used this 26.1% of the time as his put-away pitch. This was back in 2023. But the reason he uses the slider so frequently against the lefties hit 155 against it in 2023. And this is the number that jumps off the page. Basically, what Jesús Luzardo does with his slider is he kind of is going to tell you, hey, I'm throwing the slider. You're not going to hit it. At least he did that in 2023 to lefties. He got 60.5% whiff on his slider against left-handed hitters, and he used it over 40% of the time as his put-away pitch against left-handed hitters. That's the pitch that he's going to use to put left-handed hitters away. He's going to attack with the fastball, and then he's going to throw the slider offset. He's going to try to challenge you to run it away against left-handed hitters. He'll throw it against righties as well, and he uses it to varying levels of success, those numbers that I gave you. But sometimes he leaves it up against righties, and that's where it gets hit around because, again, it doesn't have a lot of break. It's not that late breaking slider. It's not a lot of spin rate. So he kind of uses it as a get me over strike pitch to righties. Sometimes he uses it a little bit too much against right-handed hitters, and that's where he gets in trouble. But it's really effective, or it was really effective in 2023 against left-handed pitching. Here's where I think Caleb Cotham can come into play with Jesús Luzardo. He's got a really good changeup. It's a plus changeup that he'll use mostly against right-handed hitting, right-handed hitters, if you will. And I think he's going to use that a little bit more, as you see my cat jump across the screen there. He's going to use that a little bit more against right-handed hitters than he will against left-handed hitters. And I think Caleb Cotham's going to get him to kind of unlock that a little bit, make it more of a power changeup. The one thing that you've noticed with the Phillies pitching staff, especially since Caleb Cotham's taken over as the pitching coach, there's kind of been an onus, if you will, on their pitchers to throw at least one of two pitches, a heavy breaking slider and kind of almost converting your slider into a sweeper, if you will, or something with vertical drop, something like a splitter, right? Think about Jeff Hoffman's splitter, something like a heavy changeup. I think this is where Caleb Cotham is going to kind of get to mold Jesús Luzardo's changeup a little bit more into his favor. He'll use it against righties. I'm not going to tell you it's ever going to be as effective as Christopher Sanchez's changeup, because that to me is one of the best changeups across all of baseball, regardless of handedness, regardless of what type of batter he's facing, lefty on lefty, lefty on righty. Christopher Sanchez has one of the elite changeups in baseball. But I think that Jesús Luzardo's changeup will stand to benefit the most from the tutelage of Caleb Cotham and working with this Phillies pitching staff, working with Ranger, working with Christopher Sanchez. I think the changeup is going to be the pitch that works the best for him. So just some numbers really quickly against righties in 2023. Righties hit 240 off of the changeup. They swung and missed almost 36% of the time. He used it as his put-away pitch about 19% of the time back in 2023. I think he could stand to use the changeup even a little bit more. He used it about 23% of the time last year and 24% of the time in 2023, his last full season. I think he could even make that number greater. In fact, I would be all for the inversion of Jesús Luzardo's changeup and slider numbers. Go fastball first, changeup second, slider third, as opposed to the fastball slider changeup combo that he's used in years past. So I said, let's talk about his numbers. 2024, injury plagued, kind of feels like an anomaly if he can bounce back. And that's kind of the mantra of the Phillies offseason this year. Can this guy bounce back from injury? You see it with the signing of Jordan Romano. You see it with the signing of Max Kepler. Now you see it with the trade for Jesús Luzardo. Can this guy bounce back from injury? I think of the three, the ceiling is the highest for Jesús Luzardo because the stuff is there. Back in 2023, well above a strikeout per inning pitched, 208 strikeouts in 178 and a third innings pitched, 1.21 whip, a 3.58 ERA, a strikeout rate of over 28%. He was generating whiffs on almost 32% of his pitches, and he was generating a chase rate at almost 32% as well. 2023 is the year to take a look at if you're going to try to figure out what type of pitcher Jesús Luzardo can be if or when he bounces back from this injury and he's able to go full bore, and you hope you get about 175, 180 innings out of this guy, assuming he is healthy and remains healthy through the brunt of the 2025 season. So what does this mean? Where does he slot into the rotation? Well, you kind of have to be able, you have the ability to kind of mix and match now with three lefties and two righties. Do you want to go left, right, left, right, left? You won't do it that way, of course, because Zach Wheeler will be your opening day starter, but you can mix and match in any way that you want. Do you want to split up Wheeler and Nola and put Christopher Sanchez in between, and then figure out how you're going to use Ranger Suarez and Jesús Luzardo towards the back end of your rotation? You have options now, and I think optionality is significant for this rotation. That was kind of thinking about, trending towards leaning on Taijuan Walker again. Was it going to be a spot start until Andrew Painter was ready? And that's the key right there as well. The acquisition of Jesús Luzardo, not just for this year, but for the foreseeable future, allows Andrew Painter to kind of progress at a natural level. Jesús Luzardo is only in arbitration year 3 this offseason, heading into the 2025 season. He's scheduled to make about $7 or $8 million in his arbitration case. This offseason, he'll head into ARB 4 next year. He'll probably get somewhere in the 11 to 12 range. He doesn't become an unrestricted free agent until the 2027 season. So obviously, with the impending free agency of Ranger Suarez around the corner, we talked about Ranger Suarez signing with Scott Boras this offseason. Is it likely that Ranger Suarez, this may be the final year as a Philadelphia Philly? It feels like it may be trending that way. But Dave Dombrowski and the Phillies have now given themselves some added leverage, some added flexibility into the rotation in case Ranger is not with the team after the 2025 season. Or perhaps before that, maybe you're thinking about this springboards a trade in which facilitates a move of Ranger Suarez for a position player. Maybe the Phillies now are not done in the trade market. And so this allows for optionality for this team, not just in the rotation, but with the entire 26-man roster. Jesus Luzardo is going to be under team control at least for the next 2 seasons in 2025 and 2026.